Thing I hate about Santa Carla is all them damn vampires. It's showtime, folks. Getting into the Halloween spirit, we're talking about one of my favorites of all time, my introduction to horror. It is The Lost Boys, my favorite vampire movie of all time. No questions asked, behind Twilight, just kidding. The Lost Boys is a film that follows Michael, a young man, teenager, who follows his divorced mother into a new town of Santa Carla with his brother Sam and their dog Nanook. Now, if you've never seen The Lost Boys, I want you to click off this video, go watch The Lost Boys, because I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about The Lost Boys in this video. There is gonna be no tearing down of this film because it is one of my all-time favorites. Now, The Lost Boys, for those of you who don't know, is a vampire movie that you have to check out. I always look forward to the Halloween season, and even months before, it doesn't matter. I'll watch The Lost Boys. If it is on, I will watch it. Now, The Lost Boys, what I love about this movie is that it plays the vampire tropes in a then modern setting. Now, The Lost Boys has a cult following. It is something that has been loved by many. And it really is just a story about this guy that's just in way over his head. Now, Michael is a character that, as a child, when I first saw him, I was like, this guy is too cool for school. He's got the dangly earring, he's got the sunglasses, he wears that leather jacket everywhere. This film follows this Michael primarily, and his in over his head experience when he meets a girl, Star. Now, Star is this love interest of his that he sees from a mile away. And if you're not familiar with the film, you may be familiar with the Instagram reel, the occasional Instagram reel that pops up, or Facebook video or whatever, of Star dancing to the sax man playing this saxophone. And he is introduced to a coven of vampires known as the Lost Boys, because Santa Carla, California, this fictional town, has a lot of missing people. Little does Michael know that they are all vampires, and Michael partakes in a initiation of sorts that turns half human, half vampire, and he's being pushed to join the vampire group. Just getting into what I love about this movie. What I really like about The Lost Boys, it's the vampire tropes, all of them, in a black comedy. It's just one of those things where a lot of things are over the top, and that's okay. It's fun. It's one of those movies that you don't really have to know anything before or after about vampires. You have this supporting cast of Sam and the Frog Brothers, who are terrified of vampires. Sam is Michael's little brother, who is just a kid. He's just a normal kid. He says these funny things all the time, and it's just little brother things to say. If you've grown up with a sibling, sometimes the younger one says some silly things, and that's what Sam does. He just says these over-the-top things from, man, my own brother's a bloodsucker. Wait till I tell mom. Stuff like that. You also have the Frog Brothers, who are just these kids that sell comic books and think that something is going on. Whether it's their imagination or not is revealed as the movie goes on, but they later find out, of course, that there are actually vampires. Now, the pros of this movie, I really enjoy the soundtrack to this movie. There's primarily maybe one song that always plays, and when you watch this movie, you know what it is. It's been covered by people like Marilyn Manson, and it really sells what Michael is going through. It's filled with this kind of youthful angst of somebody that's rebelling, but somebody that's way in over his head. And it's done well. I think Michael's character is one that just stands out as somebody that's relatable if they were ever in this predicament. He's too proud to say he's scared of what's going on, but he knows he's way in over his head. He's asking his little brother to help him. There are other elements in this movie that I like, such as the comedy of this. I don't know if it's just because it was relatable or not, but you have this grandfather character that is just, he's hilarious. He's just one of those, you think he's the kooky grandfather. He's just been living in Santa Carla by himself ever since his wife died. and they've moved in with him. And he makes this taxidermy stuff. He's giving Sam, the little brother, just different gifts that Sam is afraid to have, and he stuffs them into the closet. It's funny because I remember as a child, my grandfather, he had a bar and there was these taxidermy bobcats that he had, and I always remember relating to Sam in the sense that those things are weird looking, they're kind of creepy. So that just stuck with me. Another thing I really enjoy about this is the dynamics between each of the characters. Kiefer Sutherland plays David, one of the lead vampires in the film, and he's pushing Michael. He's trying to test Michael's limits to see how far Michael is willing to go to join this group. They're outsiders, they're cool, they just hang around these places at night, they're just doing things, they're riding their dirt bikes. It's one of those things where they're definitely just the cool guy group. They really stand out as the people that Michael wants to see, and especially with Star as the main focus of competition between Michael and David. Now, Star was probably one of my first crushes too, don't get me wrong. Listen, if anybody's gonna lead me down to a coven of vampires, it's probably gonna be somebody that looks like Star. Hey, what can I say? All right, Star does a very, very good job of trying to warn Michael, but at the same time, just not giving him the details because she doesn't know what all he'll believe. Now, the reason I think this is a solid movie for the Halloween season is because it doesn't push too hard. You know what I mean? This is a solid, soft introduction to the vampire subgenre. A lot of vampire movies, they're not for me. There's a couple that I enjoy. The Lost Boys is funny. It's got something else going for it in that the character dynamics are really, really good. It's got a stellar cast. I really think Kiefer Sutherland does a good job of being that bully character. I think you even see it in Stand By Me. Don't quote me, I might have gotten that wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's the bully in Stand By Me. And I also like him in other movies. Kiefer Sutherland is someone, every time he's in something I'm kind of interested in. He's in another Western movie called Young Guns, and that's something that I really enjoy. But I also like Michael and Sam. The brother dynamic is there. It's the big brother that's too cool for school to hang out with his little brother and this and that. And you have the funny little brother, the comic relief, that has his buddies that are trying to help Michael, but at the same time don't trust bloodsuckers. You know what I mean? So it's a very fun experience of a movie. It is not too over-the-top horror for anybody that is not into horror movies. I think it is a good way to kick off the spooky season, which is why it is the first horror movie that I review for the Halloween season. I think it is a genuine, good film that exists in a vacuum. I don't want you to go watch any of the sequels. There's only one Lost Boys in Chuco's book, and it's The Lost Boys, all right? Don't come at me talking about the sequels. Don't do it. They don't exist in my book, just the one. Don't even, I'm rambling. Just don't go talking to me about the sequels because they don't exist. I vividly remember seeing David's hand getting scorched, and that is probably one of the first introduction to horror. And hell, I ain't gonna tear this movie down. I really just like talking about it. I like engaging people about it. Every time I say, have you seen The Lost Boys? And somebody's seen it, I am ready to go. I'm ready to talk about it. You have the sax man, you've got Michael, you got dirt bikes, you got that 80s vibe. I really like the synths going. I just rewatched this movie a couple of days ago, and it's just one of those things that it never gets old. It's a timeless film, and I really, really enjoy The Lost Boys. It comes down to preference, of course, but whenever you're talking about the vampire subgenre in horror, I think The Lost Boys is by far one of the best. Just to give it a rating, as far as vampire horror movies go, I think The Lost Boys is easily a 4. It's got comedy in it, it's got horror elements, it has a solid story of this brother that is just way in over his head, trying to hold on to his humanity, even though this group of vampires is trying to pull him away from that. It's a test of moral character and just peer pressure, you know what I mean? So I think this movie is solid. And then it has, of course, awesome music, 80s vibes. It really gives you that vampire. It gets heavy synth music. It's just, oh, it's so hard to put into words what I enjoy about this. All I know is I enjoy it, all right? That's it. Yeah, that's all you need to really know is that this movie is solid. And Chuco is telling you to go check it out. Another thing I enjoy, is that the vampire tropes are used, and they're used comedically and effectively. I love that you have the hellhounds, you have just the normal dog that's protecting the human, stuff like that. All that is thrown in this movie is just so well done. It's a balance between a serious tone and comedy, and that's always super hard to find. But The Lost Boys does it. There's so much good in this film. It's just one of those horror movies. Not really, it's a mild horror movie, but it's one of the ones that I think has a solid story, has solid music, and has solid performances. And what more can you ask for? So getting into my Chuco rating, I'd have to give The Lost Boys a 4 out of 5, easy. And I'll stand by that score. We're not talking about the sequels. But I'd have to give this a 4 out of 5. It's just such a fun movie. It's a good introduction to horror for those who aren't really into scary movies or horror movies or gore. There's not a lot of gore in this. There's not a lot of much of any kind of thing that pushes the boundary other than that. There's a lot of discussion as far as what the Lost Boys are really doing, what they really mean. And I think that's interesting to have a conversation about. But even just in a vacuum, just watching it for what it is, this movie is solid, and it's one thing that I highly recommend to all of you to check out this Halloween season. But what do you guys think about The Lost Boys? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Disagree with what I'm saying? Is there anything that you think I left out that I should have mentioned about The Lost Boys? Leave it down in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, I'd really appreciate if you would like and share this video. Or if you want to see more from good old Chuco, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe. We're getting into the horror season. I'm trying to do a couple more things with the horror element of October. I'm trying to have a good time. So let me know what movie you think I should talk about this horror season, or a movie that you'd want to talk about in general. But guys, if you're ever fighting a group of vampires, always remember something my friend Michael used to tell me, and that's